Hey guys, welcome to another webisode. This is Garden Chat. My name is Mark Kateli. I'm the president of Cuplet Fern chapter, and today I am honored to have my team members here with me. So welcome to Cuplet Fern. We are a chapter of the Florida Native Plant Society. As most of you know, our statewide mission is the conservation, preservation, and restoration of Florida native plants and native plant communities. I will introduce our team members right now. So Jennifer Hopton is our Cuplet Fern invasive plant removal coordinator. She is a Lake Helen resident and also a restoration activist for Lake Helen, which is actually a real lake named after the city of Lake Helen is named after Lake Helen Lake. Gia Ekdahl is our director at large as well. She is the Cuplet Fern propagation coordinator. She is the creator of the ever popular Florida Native Gardening Group. And Cali Adams also administers the Florida Native Gardening Group along with Gia. And she is our Children and Family Activities Coordinator. She also happens to be a Seminole Rural Boundary Environmental Preservationist. I would like to especially thank University of South Florida's Plant Atlas and our Instagram friends for their pictures. Without them, this presentation would not be what it is. So thank you so much in advance. Cuplet Fern's recommendation. We always recommend to choose native plants that are naturally found in your area. If you don't know this already, Florida is the 6th most plant biodiverse state in the country. So for example, there is over 1,000 Florida native plants just vouchered in Seminole County alone, the region that we serve. And then especially in Florida, there's over 3,000 species. So we're not like other states that are more homogeneous like Minnesota or Nebraska or North and South Dakota. There's a huge variation of native plants here. So choose plants that are naturally found growing in your area. And that is a great way to tie in native plant gardening with helping your local biodiversity. And Lady Bird Johnson, the First Lady of the United States, the wife to President Lyndon B. Johnson, said it best. She said, wherever I go in America, I like it when the land speaks its own language and its own regional accent. So choose native plants regional. What is the definition of a native plant? We always have this slide, and you can always go to the FNPS website, the fnps.org. Prior to European contact is the first criteria, usually indigenous, prior to significant human impacts and alterations of the landscape. You can find more about this definition at fnps.org. Cuplet Fern, as you probably know, is the FNPS chapter of the year. It is a great honor. We are very, very grateful to be bestowed this honor by FNPS State. If you can, please donate to cupletfern.org. I'm sorry, Venmo, PayPal, and Cash App it's listed right there. Your donations help us just keep going with our outreach. Today's special webisode is starter pack ideas. So in case you're just starting out with native plants, you don't know where to turn to, which plants to select, this is a great webisode. It'll be available in our library on YouTube as well as Facebook within 24 hours. So in case you need to share this with friends and family, please do so. And this is just our way of thanking our membership for their continued love and support. So we really love putting together these webisodes to serve and provide outreach, especially during COVID-19. And just on the heels of this webisode, we are having our plant sale. And that's on August 15th at the Sanford Garden Club, 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. If you are a Cuplet Fern member, you can pick up the day before. So if you had pre-orders or if you have had requests, you can pick them up on August 14th. Just email us. If you've already filled out your pre-order form, we will be emailing you. Chances are it could be as early as Thursday. So be on the lookout for that as well. So our plant sale is here in case any of these plants that we're going to discuss in this webisode appeal to you. Many of them will be available at the plant sale as well. Refer a friend or family member to Cuplet Fern today. So we are a regional presence here in Central Florida. I've actually put up this slide. This is actually a screenshot from the Florida Native Plant Society at fnps.org. And there lies the giant red arrow that's pointing to join. So please join. And if you are in our region, you can definitely select Cuplet Fern when prompted. So I think that red salvia is our very first slide. And Kaylee, is this yours?
Yes.
All right, take it over.
All right, we'll jump right into it. So this is red salvia. It's also botanical name is Salvia coccinea or coccini. Can you correct me on that, Mark?
Coccinea.
Coccinea. Okay, I did have it right. So it's got colors between red, pink, salmon, and white. Sometimes there's a variation. You'll find white flowers. It likes full sun, dry, sandy soil, and it's a pretty reliable bloomer. It will flower from spring, and if the winter stays warm, it'll stay blooming through the winter, just slows down a little bit. And it attracts hummingbirds. They really love it. But I've also seen butterflies and bees. And I read that it attracts birds too, but I have not seen that personally. But I added that in there, that we have the birds. And it can get leggy and out of control very easily. So after a while, just top it, and they grow back bushier.
They're a very frequent self-seeder. So once you plant them, you will have many.
Yes, exactly.
But they're easy to pull up.
Yes, they are. Yes, they are. You can definitely change your mind with red salvia.
So I added these pictures here. This one here on the left is one from my yard. I like to use it in the vegetable garden. It attracts pollinators. The bees come to it. And actually, a member from Florida Native Gardening had this picture on the right, and I asked him for permission to use it for here because I just loved it. The bumblebee going up to the flower was just, a very cute picture. It was a very good shot too. So it's a good nectar plant for bees and hummingbirds, and it reseeds, like you said. And its variation is very common. You can see even in one patch if you end up with just one plant, and then you have down the line a couple years, you'll end up with a lighter color eventually somehow. I can't explain it, but that's what's happened with mine. And I've seen in the group also. And they're pretty much year round. They're a really good plant to start with. I think that they're great. So it was good to start with.
I added this because salvia is just such a great plant to add into any of your garden beds. So I have a lot of established garden beds, and it just fills an empty space and frames everything. And then if you have useless plants like roses, you can put salvia around it, and then you'll have the butterflies and bees. So it's just showing this. The first slide is more of a native wildflower garden, and it just provides complementary color all year round. It goes with everything. Wow. And then on the other one, it's got a lot of non-native plants in it. So I've just started adding salvia into it and other wildflowers, and it's great. It's just the best plant. And it grows in sun and shade, so you don't have to worry about it at all.
Mm-hmm. You framed it really well. I like the usage in the background with the small specks of red. Looks
Yeah.
nice.
Mhm.
Oh, that's it.
And the next one is beautyberry.
Yep, here we have its botanical name is Calicarpa americana. Its little teeny tiny flowers are lavender to whitish. It can grow, it grows best in fullish kind of sun with a little dappled shade, I think, to protect it. But it can take most sun site conditions.
Yeah.
It likes moderate to dry. Yeah, Jennifer?
Oh, I was just saying, yeah, I noticed it was growing in full sun on a spot that's horrible for everything. And even the droughtiest part of the year, it still looks great. So
Yeah,
it's,
they thrive in my scrub, and they thrive over in down the road at a trail that's really wetland kind of, and they're everywhere. They're good.
Yeah, all over my yard too, Kaylee. Like they're just, and my yard's wet, you know, and in my yard they grow in shaded areas. So they do. They really are great for beginners because they pretty much are indestructible and
and they're
transplant
beautiful
really well
all year
too.
round. Because when it's wintertime, those berries stay on if the birds don't eat them all. And you've just got berries all winter.
They are such an important food source for birds in the late
Mhm.
winter when most plants are dormant. Yeah, it's a wonderful, wonderful plant, and you can kind of experiment if you're buying like a young oak tree, and because this particular plant tolerates shade, you can pair or you can grow them side by side. And it's really cool because as the oak tree shoots up, it provides a canopy. This beautyberry stays low and, it's kind of shorter, shrub-like. So it gives kind of like a scale to your yard, especially aesthetically for your eye, but also for wildlife, because there's different wildlife up in the tree canopy, and there'll be different wildlife right next to where the tree is, where the shrub is growing. So it's a great plant.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah.
have my beautyberry right underneath my cedar tree, so the cedar tree feeds the birds, and then the beautyberry feeds the birds. They
Yeah,
go crazy
that's great.
for it.
Agreed. Agreed. Yeah, folks, if you're just joining us, we're doing starter pack ideas. And these are plants that are easy to grow if you're just starting out on your native plant journey and gardening, helping biodiversity, helping your local environment by choosing native plants. This is a great webisode for you. We're just talking about beautyberry right now. And the next slide actually shows a close-up of those gorgeous fruit.
Yeah, those pictures were off of two plants in my yard, actually. So the one with the green berries is the one that's under the cedar tree. It's full shade, so it's taking a while to get going. So I guess in shade, they take longer to, come to fruit. Because then this other one is in a sunnier spot in my yard, and its berries are
Yeah.
purple and almost ready.
But that's awesome.
The other one, the one in the sun gets more energy, so it's able to produce fruit quicker.
Exactly. And that
And
plant
that,
is actually smaller too.
yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
And the purple color, it changes throughout the year, so it adds a lot of interest. Just it's like this delicate purple, and then it turns really deep. So
Yes, that's great.
it looks great with other.
What do you guys think? I mean, for when I've tried beautyberry, it tastes pretty bland. I usually
Yeah,
say
it's
that it
bland.
tastes like cardboard.
Yeah.
It's pretty
But,
bland.
okay.
It's really kind of, I don't know, I think it's kind of gross. It has this floral kind of smell to it. I think it's more like a floral kind of taste than a berry taste. But I don't know, like it's really good if you make a jam into it or like a syrup. I made a simple syrup out of it and used it on pancakes before. And it kind of got like, it was just a floral with a slight fruity kind of flavor to it. But by themselves, they are kind of gross.
Yeah. We have a couple of commenters from Facebook, and Stacy writes, "Can beautyberry be grown from a cutting?" Gia, what's your take on that?
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. It can be grown from a cutting. I've found them to be fairly indestructible. Like I have them all over my yard, so I'll dig up little baby ones and repot them. I have also tried from cuttings, and I mean, I don't think I've started a cutting of beautyberry that failed. So I don't even know if I could tell you a right or wrong way to do it. Just like take a stick and stick it in some dirt, and just kind of keep it moist. But it seems pretty easy for me. So yeah, I mean, I would just try it out. Absolutely.
Yeah. Judy writes, I have the white one too. Now keep in mind, Judy, you do. Good for you. It's a very rare recessive trait to have a white beautyberry. Usually the ones that we see floating around on Instagram are not the native beautyberry, but actually Calocarpa japonica, which is the Asian cousin, and it does have white fruit. But yes, if you do have a white native beautyberry, you should be blessed because it's a very rare trait.
Cool.
Hey, Ryan. Ryan writes, I might be the odd one out here, but raw beautyberry tastes good to me. Well, you must have a more refined palate than most of us. But unfortunately for me and the rest of the team here, it tastes like cardboard. But it is edible. And everything tastes better with sugar. So you can make it into jellies and syrups and stuff like that. But I think if you are somebody that has dietary restrictions and doesn't eat sugar, you can taste berries that are fruit that is mildly sweet far better than people that are used to having sugar in their regular lives consistently.
Absolutely.
That makes sense.
All right, moving on. So the next one is frog fruit, Phyllonotiflora.
Yep. So this one, it's got the teeny tiny flowers. It's very common in people's lawns. They usually rip it up thinking it's just a weed, but it's a host plant for some butterflies, and it's a good nectar plant, and it's all around great to keep. I have rabbits and gopher tortoises in my yard. They love to eat it, and it's a good forage food in general for wildlife. So if you're wanting to garden for habitats, that's something good, and it's a great ground cover too. It's handles light foot traffic. You can walk on it, and it fills in a lot of spots.
Now, is this picture from your yard, Kaylee?
That's from Gia's yard, actually. She sent that to me for the slide.
Awesome.
I love it. It is absolutely one of my favorite ground covers. When you see them kind of growing throughout grass, it could look a little out of place and weedy. But whenever they are all grown, like a ground cover on its own, and they're all blooming all at once, they look phenomenal. And there's a section of my yard that they've started squeezing out the grass, and I'm so excited because I really want it all to be that. So it seems to be effective at actually blocking some other things that are coming through, at least in my experience. So people will use this as a turf replacement, and that's kind of my goal with this also.
That's awesome. I've been interested in growing frog fruit for quite some time. And in my lawn replacement strategy, I'm kind of a lazy gardener when it comes to the lawn in particular. So I'm thinking maybe intermixing it with some twin flower, maybe some like wild strawberry. So it's not just a one monotonous frog fruit patch, but it offers other things, creeping around in it. Maybe that's my strategy. I don't know.
That's my strategy too. Yep.
Same.
Yeah. Okay.
I've got the portulaca mixed in with mine, the portulaca pilosa. That one's mixed in with my frog fruit over by my chicken coop. So.
That's awesome. And portulaca is edible, believe it or not. So that's a great one to have. That's awesome. Yeah, I like the mixed turf replacement strategy rather than just, a whole mat of sunshine mimosa or a whole mat of frog fruit. Might be easy.
But that was so good right there.
Yeah, we'll see that in a minute. All right. So let's move on to the next. That's a gorgeous picture. Did you take that picture, Kaylee?
Yes,
close-up of the flower?
Yeah, I love the close-up.
Thank you. Thank you. That was with my cell phone too, believe it or not.
Wow.
Yeah. So yeah, I wanted to kind of showcase the detail that you see in them. And yes, it propagates very easily. You can pull it up. You don't have to be gentle. You just pull it up and throw it in water, and it'll root. This stuff is great. The The pot there I have on the side, that's from my yard also. I propagated about 4 little, 6-inch cuttings and just put them in the pot, and I've wound them around and they've filled in, and it's a spiller. So
Yeah.
it's a very good versatile plant. I think that's it's versatile, and it's a pollinator and larval host plant. It's in general something you want to have in your garden.
Yeah.
Right. And unlike the sunshine mimosa, if we have a cold snap, it won't brown up. Like sunshine mimosa
Yeah.
is really winter dormant. This one actually turns a nice shade of red, but the leaves don't fall out, the stem doesn't die back or anything. It's quite appealing in that sense too. So in case our viewers are wondering, well, what kind of plant should I get? I don't want my lawn to brown up if I'm replacing the lawn. Sunshine mimosa will do that during cold snaps, but frog fruit is more resilient to cold snaps for sure. Rita Reese Law writes, I picked frog fruit flowers when I was a kid for a bouquet for my dolls. That's awesome.
So sweet.
That is wonderful. That's an idea to keep for the outreach program as they keep going on. Little fair.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's going now. Thank you, Ms. Rita.
Your next one here is coral honeysuckle.
Yes, this one also in my yard, featured from the top right there with the swallowtail. It attracts the hummingbirds and the butterflies and bees. It's almost year-round. It goes dormant in the winter, but it still stays green. The leaves do, at least. And it's definitely one of those plants that abides by that rule of the first year it sleeps, the second year it creeps, and then the next one it leaps. For me, the third year, it really established itself and took off, and now it's about 20 feet up my tree. So it's a very good plant. It's full sun to deep shade. It can handle it all. It likes sandy soil, dry conditions, and to propagate it, I've had success with cutting it off by rooted runners, but I've read about air layering, and then also what the Florida Native Plant Society site said was to take softer semi-hardwood cuttings at the end of summer or fall, and to use rooting hormone and hopefully have success with that, because other than that, I've not had success.
I've had success rooting it that way with the root hormone. Yep, it does. That's how I got mine, actually. I went down the road and took some cuttings from a public park and rooted it at home.
I'm glad you didn't get caught, but
I don't. There was ample space. It was like 3 little tiny pieces.
So, folks, if you're tuning in, your public park is not a plant buffet, okay?
It was a few years ago.
Yes, that's the whole know better, do better thing. When you're first getting into it, you don't do it all. So
I'm only joking, Jennifer. But yes, this is a great plant, and its wood is soft. Another interesting and unusual application of coral honeysuckle is to create a low hedge. So you can really cut back this plant almost like you do with podocarpus, very forgiving, but over time it will branch and it will fill out, and you can have almost a low lying but upright, because it's got that soft wood structure, a hedge. So you need not always think of it as a trellising or a high climbing type of vine. That's its natural shape. But if you are a skilled gardener and you're spending hours upon hours every day in your yard as part of your therapy, you can apply this in a very unique way. So it is a very interesting plant. Eric writes, will they hurt a tree if they grow on it, and do they have any scent?
Well, for hurting the tree, it could, I think, if it weighs it down at some point.
It depends on the maturity.
I planted it before I knew any better. I got first into, I was like, ooh, this is a native plant. It was right down my dirt road, and I was like, ooh, I'm gonna plant that. It was, along my fence line, but still, I moved it closer to the house and I put it there, and it took off. And I've wondered myself if it's going to eventually hurt the tree. I think it could. So it's something I might have to
Yeah.
address.
Well, you
So
can always keep it pruned down, or you
Mhm.
can train it onto a trellis. That's my plan because mine's growing up a tree also.
Yeah.
So if I get like a trellis or something, you can train it on that and just keep it trimmed where you don't want it.
I just honestly truly love the natural look of it going up the oak tree with all the moss and everything that comes down.
Oh,
I know
yeah.
it's probably not the best, but it looks beautiful to me.
It's beautiful. You've
Well, that's how
embraced
they grow.
natural. Yeah, exactly.
That's how they grow in nature. So it's most trees can manage.
And unlike other our native vines like crossvine or I forget the other one, but those actually
Carolina?
fuse. No, it's crossvine, and then oh gosh, whenever you want to think about the vine, you forget its name. But crossvine will actually fuse to whatever it's latching onto. With coral honeysuckle, it's kind of trainable. You can change your mind, or you can change its placement a little bit better.
Yeah.
Other types of our Campsis radicans, I keep forgetting its common name, but Campsis radicans will fuse to the trunk, and it'll get
The trumpet flower?
Trumpet flower. There you go.
Vine. I think it's called trumpet vine or something. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah. That's what a coral's honeysuckle doesn't have any tendrils or anything. It doesn't have any grabby parts. It just kind of like I had a conversation with somebody in the gardening group about this because they decided they didn't want it because it didn't grab onto things, but it kind of does. So it, instead of having the little tendrils that grab onto things, it will kind of wind itself around things. So the stem does wind around, but it doesn't grab as much as like passion flower, like some other things, for sure.
Yeah, it does vine. It's a little mangly, I think, the way it at least goes up my tree.
Good to know.
But so in these pictures, I have it on the left side. That's on my oak tree also, and then on the right, on the bottom there, that's it on a trellis against a fence from another member of the Florida Native Gardening Group, Jonathan Edward. I asked him for permission to use it, and it's a really good example of it being used in kind of a suburban backyard, because mine's not suburban, so I don't really have that example to show people. So I reached out and asked, and he graciously allowed me. The two moths, or the moth and the butterfly up at the top, I learned actually about this doing research for this. I didn't know that those are they host on coral honeysuckle. It's their larval host plant.
Oh,
cool. And one snowberry clearwing, which I actually saw one zip through my yard, and I thought it was a hummingbird, but it wasn't. So those are really cool.
Yeah.
And they host on that. And then the spring azure, or azure, I might botch. Those they also host on them too, and I didn't know that. I figured that was a neat addition to add.
Right. Stacy writes, "Is this also called coral bean?"
No, that's a different one.
That's a different one, and we're going to actually have
we'll be talking about
coral
that.
bean soon. Yeah.
Yep.
Judy writes, "I planted coral honeysuckle not knowing what it was, and it took over my fence line. The good thing is it keeps the neighbor's bamboo out." So
all right.
It's a perk.
You found a benefit to the plant. There you go. And the next one up is blazing stars. We have so many of them in Florida.
Yes, that's why I added several. I didn't want it to get confusing by having several different kinds, so I wanted to try to keep it organized in a way that it was obvious which ones were which here. So we have 3 most commonly found in the trade that you'll get when you go to a native nursery, and that's slender glazing star. Sorry, what's the middle one common name? I'm sorry, spicata. What's that common name?
Liatris spicata. tall or wand gay feather or blazing star. I'm not really good with my
Wand.
common names. Sorry.
Not with Leotris for me. I just go with the botanical name because there's too many of them.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, the first two there, those are the ones that like moderate soil with some wetness to it. You find them, in flat woods, wet areas, not wet, but wetter. And then on the right there, that's Leotris tenuifolia, and that is an upland, like dry, sandy soil also. So there's a big variation in there on their habitat types. There's so many different kinds, but they also attract a huge range of animals. Like mammals, small mammals will eat it, and then there's butterflies, bees, hummingbirds, regular birds. It supports all kinds of wildlife, and they're just beautiful. And people who like purple might find this to be a beautiful flower to have in their yard.
Yeah. The only clincher, Kaylee, is that it only blooms for a very short period in the fall.
I know.
So actually, I think your next slide talks, actually the following slide will talk a little bit more about planting it. So why don't you talk about this slide, and then we'll show an application in a garden setting next.
Okay. The garden settings, actually, Jennifer had put those together. She used some really good pictures, I think, and those showed really good examples of it being used amongst other stuff. But here I showcased what they look like. The really close-ups there of Gracilis and Spicata. I'm sorry. Yeah. And they look pretty similar. If you're looking at just the close-ups, it's when you're looking at the foliage and the shape of the plant or the height, like Spicata gets really tall.
Mm-hmm.
We had a member post in the group. She's almost 6 feet tall herself, and she was holding this plant like this, and the top of it was above her head.
Right. Yeah.
I thought
that's
very
awesome.
cool.
So huge variety, 18 different kinds of species in here.
Mm-hmm. And that's what I counted off of the plant atlas, is 18 that are recognized as native in Florida. Some only found in the Panhandle, some only found in South Florida, but many found in Central. We have quite a few. And majority of them you can't quite find at a nursery very easily. It's if you are lucky like me and you have a wild variety, or if you find somebody who does and they want to share. I have Leotris laevigata, which is another scrub one, growing. It's very similar to tenuifolia. It's the only difference is the base, I think, the leaf at the base.
Really?
At least that I can tell. I'm not an expert. But trying to compare between the two, because I know it's one of the two, and then I finally set on it being laevigata.
Yeah, I think so too. A great place to see them in the wild, and we have to do a field trip there again, is the Waria Tract. It's just south of Claremont. Really small property, but it's super special. It's a fire managed property that has an amazing selection of variation of Liatris growing there. So yeah, if people want to come out and check a property, especially after a fire regimen has been in place, and really witness a true fall in Florida, because people don't really think of Florida as having a fall season, but when you see these plants, you become a believer.
Yeah, there's definitely variation in the seasons. You can see the gradual changes. I can already see autumn starting.
Yeah.
A little bit here and there. My blazing stars are starting to send up their spikes right now. I've been watching them.
Yeah.
Our Florida fall colors are just a little bit more vibrant than the rest of the world.
Yeah, definitely. It's our second spring.
Yeah, exactly.
I like that. Second spring.
Yep.
And here's the slide that is really important and useful. And this is it doesn't show our native Gaillardia there. Those are not our native Gaillardia.
But it gives you the idea that you can put our native Gaillardia there with Leotris, and they look beautiful together.
Absolutely. And the pairing really works because gaillardias bloom year round. And,
Mhm.
blazing star is really short season for their inflorescence or their floral spikes. So intermixing them is very successful and almost like a nice surprise or a nice marker, like, oh, summer's coming to an end. Here are the
Yeah.
liatris blooming. The fall is about to begin. So it's really cool.
Yeah.
And you can always add more in when you see, the periods when things don't look interesting. So figure out what's blooming right now. I can add that in.
Absolutely.
That's what I, yeah.
Absolutely. Great picture. Great visual, idea. And there it is again. Here's some other ideas. Love this
Yeah.
setting. One is almost like a wetland type of garden on the left, and the other is slightly drier.
Yeah,
So
it looks like the one on the left has black-eyed Susans with it, and then the one on the
beautiful,
right has some native grasses and probably black-eyed Susans again. So
beautiful.
just, yeah, I really
Yeah,
enjoy those.
it was just beautiful.
I love it. Judy writes, "What is the name of the track or trail?" Judy, the name of the track is the Waria Tract, TRACT. It's not open to the public, but once in a while we are honored to check it out. But yes, it's a special property. It's actually a very disjunct property, part of the Seminole State Forest, and they've done some studies on fire management. And it happens to be the poster child where it's completely swallowed or surrounded by development, homes on all sides, and how fire management is kind of able to still persist without causing the neighbors grief with smoke and stuff like that. So it's a nice property to visit when we can.
Hmm.
And here's another picture. So this looks like Godfrey's, not Godfrey's gay feather. Which one is this one? Would you happen to know? This was a very robust variety of liatris.
I didn't make note of that. I was
Yeah.
just showing, just different ideas.
To
Oh, I
me,
love
And
it.
also the growth pattern, how it's kind of laying out. So it
Mm-hmm.
helps to have support, something supporting it.
kind of
Yeah,
surrounded, intermixed.
Yeah, definitely.
yeah. The more robust varieties definitely get top heavy and they flop right over. So yeah, this is a great idea for color, just slightly floating above the surface of the ground. Like it. Our next one is passion flower.
Hey, that one's mine. So yay, I get to talk. Passport is my favorite, one of my absolute favorite flowers since I was a child. It grows very easily. It's a host for several different butterflies. So really, you know, we've had people in the gardening group on Facebook ask, if I could only pick one thing for my small butterfly garden for my yard. I don't have a ton of room to put a ton of plants. Like this one's awesome because it's a host of several butterflies and it's just a really
Bees.
really interesting really interesting flower. Yeah. Um, when I was a kid, when I first saw one growing for the first time, I thought it must be poisonous because anything that looks strange and kind of bizarre, I'm like, it's got to be crazy, and I was scared of it, and I didn't want to get near it. And when I was older and learned what it was, I thought it was the most amazing thing ever. So the native variety is a little bit different than the passion fruit that you might be familiar with and juices and things like that. Um, you can still eat the pulp from the inside of this. But as you can see in the picture, and I included that picture just specifically so you could see what that looks like, there's not a lot there. So it's kind of a novelty, but it's actually pretty good. I tried it the other day, actually, on mine. I got my first fruit, and it's very, very, it's kind of tart and sweet. And you just suck the little pulp off and then spit the seed out. I planted the seeds, so. But yeah, that one's a really great one for a beginning native gardener who wants to get into butterfly gardening specifically.
Yeah, it's not your passion fruit that you get at the grocery store. That's for sure.
Right. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to add what Ryan wrote for a previous slide. I'm just going to float over to it just briefly. But he writes, native grasses can be planted in drifts with your wildflowers to carry your wildflowers through winter to add interest. So it's a great point from our friend Ryan over here.
Yeah, it does add a lot of interest, and for the migratory birds, it provides a food source, place to hide. So
Yeah, that's a
I love the
idea.
look of them during winter time, the colors that they add.
Yeah, thanks Ryan for that. And we have another commenter. Judy writes, "Is this the same as maypop?"
Yes.
Yeah, that's one of the common names for it. Yes.
Awesome. Your next slide is some more pretty pictures.
Yeah, these are from my yard, actually. I have them growing up. I've got a run for my chickens attached to my chicken coop, and my hope was to have it grow up the side and shade. This was taken probably last week, and now I have almost no vines left. I just found them. So I got excited when I found my first caterpillar, and I'm like, oh, there's 3. Oh, wait, there's 10. Oh, there's like 45.
That's what they do. Yep.
See how
I have
that
a-
works.
Yeah.
It'll grow. It'll get keep adding
Yeah.
more.
They're pretty robust, and they send out runners also. So that's one thing to also, you'll probably have more than you need if you put it in the ground, because then they're going to send out runners, and you might find it popping up in odd places. So if you don't want that to happen, having like a border or something, or keeping it in a pot so that it doesn't do that would probably be a good idea. But they are pretty robust, even if the caterpillars do eat them down.
Yeah, they are very resilient, and you do need the caterpillars to mow them down. It saves you a lot of work in the long term. Otherwise, you will have to keep hacking it back in place.
Well, you just cut it down. They'll every once in a while pop up, and it's just a quick snip or a yank.
Yeah. Judy writes, and this is again floating back to this particular slide. So Judy writes, can you name some of the native grasses? So Billy grass is one, love grass is another. The only thing with love grass is that it's a very short perennial, if not an annual, so it'll phase out. Try using Andropogon. Andropogon virginicus is a great option, and it's readily available in nurseries, native nurseries. But there's many Fakahatchee grass. So Fakahatchee, you can get the real tall variety, the more robust standard one, or you can get a dwarf Fakahatchee grass variety, which is much more smaller and almost waist high. So there are different ones. Fakahatchee likes more wetter conditions. Andropogon also likes more wetter conditions or seasonally wet conditions. And then Bewley grass can definitely like super dry conditions. So depending on what site you have, you can select your grasses accordingly. All right, moving forward. Sorry. So the next one is aquatic milkweed.
Yes. So I picked aquatic milkweed to talk about just because in a lot of other videos, I think people cover some of the other common ones you'll find in native nurseries, like the pink swamp milkweed, as well as the orange butterfly weed. Those are pretty common. This one I just really enjoy because it is so prolific for me, and it might depend on the spot that you have it in. But this is more like in nature, you'll find it in wetlands that are very shady. And that's another thing. Sometimes people want to know what they can put in shade gardens, or they might have like just a moist, shady area. This is a flower that could be an option for a shady area for your butterfly garden. And unlike a lot of the other native milkweeds, this one doesn't really go dormant. I think sometimes they can, but for the most part, they stay around at least a little bit all year. And they pretty much bloom for as long as I've had mine. I've maybe there'll be like a month where they kind of take a break, but for the most part, they're blooming year round for me also. I'm producing tons of seed pods. So real nice to be able to share, you know, a bunch of seedlings with friends or seeds with friends with this one. So this is absolutely one of my favorites.
Yeah, I have one from you, and it's blooming, and it's beautiful. It's got several flower heads right now. It's awesome.
Oh, awesome. Yay.
Stacy writes, I just got some of the pink variety. It came with 2 caterpillars on it, but they're already gone.
Aw, the caterpillars or the milk
or the plant, both.
Probably the pink one. But that's the issue. That's the testament to our native plants. You'll see the same thing with passion vines, especially corky stem passion vines. I cannot keep enough corky stem passion vine in my yard. They get mowed down, they get eaten to the nubs. But that's what we're trying to do in our outreach, is to really emphasize and underline the importance of native plants. Because when your wildlife is being attracted to your native plants so much, it only shows you that you need to plant more of it.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, and I think people need to remember not to be discouraged when they see that either, because it'll come back from the roots. A lot of times this stuff just comes back from the roots. It'll surprise you. Corky stem will. Corky stem passion flower is a different kind of passion flower. The maypop, the purple one that I showed you, that one will come back even if they eat it down to nubs. So don't get discouraged if that happens to you. Just know that your garden is doing a good thing.
That's right. That's right. And Stacy actually wrote back and said it's the caterpillars. So Stacy, if it's the caterpillars, it was part of the beautiful thing called the giant food web. So a spider got it, or a wasp got it, or maybe a lizard got it.
Little chrysalis. Maybe it was their time.
Yeah, they crawl pretty far away from the plant when they make their chrysalis.
Yes.
So you won't necessarily see where they did it.
Mm-hmm.
Solid point. So here's your next slide.
Yeah. So the one that you see on the left there. So I, whenever I'm out, and one thing that I kind of would like to encourage for people who are new to native gardening is take hikes and kind of see where things are growing naturally to help give you ideas. So the one on the left was actually at Gilchrist Blue Springs in Gilchrist County, and which is our newest state park, I believe. And this was growing in a very shady area. Kind of, there was a stream that was kind of going away from the main springs, and so it was kind of right off of the stream in a very wet, shady area. So that's what helped me figure out where I wanted to find whenever I, purchased one at a native nursery. So I found mine, which is the right picture, from a native nursery, and I have a little shady bog garden that I created for this to go in. And so this is a picture from my bog garden on the right there.
Wonderful. Yeah. Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So next one is Stokes Aster.
Stokes Aster is probably my I wanted to say my favorite, but then
your top 5.
They're all your favorites.
I can't. But it's definitely among my favorites. The flowers are just so large and beautiful. So it reminds me kind of the big, is it Gerbera or Gerbera daisies? Kind of. You know what I'm talking about? The
Gerberia? I always call them Gerberia. Am I wrong?
Who knows? I'm probably saying it wrong. I don't. But those, it reminds me of that because of how big they are. And so it really, the way that it grows is interesting. It just kind of has this basal has these small short leaves that kind of come out in this clump, and then it sends up really long. I'm sorry?
I said absolutely.
Yeah, and then it sends out really long stems, which can be, some of mine have gotten like 2 feet tall stems that maybe will branch off a little bit and have several buds and flowers on it. So it's a really kind of striking plant to have in your wildflower garden. Just really big and bold and very pretty, really. And the ones in my yard, they seem to be happiest from some resources I found say that they can be drought tolerant and they can be in full sun. I've not exactly found that to be the case. It might depend on your area. For me, they grow the best in part sun, and moist soil. So that seems to keep them the happiest from what I know. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And these, and one of my favorite things about them is they make beautiful cut flowers. So I like to sometimes bring some things inside from the garden, and these they last for a long time when you cut them. The ones on the left, I just had some Lyonia from my yard. I just kind of stuck in a jar and brought it inside for a little bit. And then the one on the right, that was actually an arrangement I did for my best friend's wedding cake. So it worked really great. Yeah. And it didn't even have any moisture really, because it lasted for hours without even being moisture on the cake. Yeah. It was fantastic flower for cut flowers.
I didn't know that. I thought it would have immediately wilted because it's so wetland dependent.
Yeah, well, I wrapped it. You wrap the stem when you're putting it on wedding cakes. You kind of have to seal it, wrap it, and perhaps that helped hold in the moisture. But it's not like it was in water, So
Yeah,
it
yeah.
still helped well.
Wow, awesome. Eric writes, I have a couple, and they flowered a while ago, and now there are just the stems just sticking out for the rest of the plant. Should I cut the stems? Would that encourage flowering again?
Mine flower nonstop, whether I cut them or not. To be honest, I mean, if it looks unattractive, and
it might not be in the right spot. I had some that were in full sun, and I had to move them to part sun, and they're looking a lot better now. So it could be something like that. If they were planted in the potting soil, there could be some issues between the native soil and the potting soil also. And if you rinse that off or just give it a really good watering to get it washed away, that could help.
Yeah, I mean, the stems will just turn like brown and crispy and dead when they're just done. Anyway, that's just the natural course of it.
Yeah, so, the stem's not going to stay.
Yeah, so just ripping that is fine if you want to, but honestly, mine blooms pretty much all year, and I don't really do much to it.
Agreed. Low maintenance plant.
Mm-hmm.
The next one is Sunshine Mimosa.
Sunshine Mimosa. This one is, so we talked about fog fruit earlier as a ground cover. This is another option. So I think and we kind of talked about, using like a mix of different ground covers to achieve kind of like coverage in your lawn. So this is kind of an example of plants that maybe can do well in some places where another one wouldn't, and why people kind of mix things. Sunshine Mimosa does really well in dry soils. Fog fruit tends to like a little bit more moisture, it seems. So sometimes having a mixture of things can help make sure that you have coverage in like your shady areas and your sunny areas and all that. This one is the only thing with Sunshine Mimosa is I think it's in the winter it kind of goes a little dormant and it doesn't really offer like coverage, but pretty much any other time of year it really works really well as a ground cover, and it can be pretty aggressive. So wherever you plant it, you want to make sure that it's not going to run into areas that you don't really want it to, like flower beds and things like that. Otherwise, it's going to be very difficult to maintain.
Yeah, you just have to keep pulling it out and edging the flower bed.
And the thing in this, though, it has very, very deep roots, very deep roots. And that's what makes it so drought tolerant. Yeah. And that's another thing. When you first plant Sunshine Mimosa, you've really got to keep it watered well until it can establish that taproot, and then it becomes drought resistant. But before it gets its roots set, it really kind of needs to be watered frequently. So these pictures I thought were interesting because the one on the left is actually a wild one in my neighborhood that was growing in some very, very sandy soil. It just kind of looks almost like scrub sand or beach sand almost. So just the difference between that and then it also grows, in like a traditional lawn type setting. But the one on the right kind of gives you an example of, how it can work as a ground cover. It can be mowed, it can be walked on to a point, and if you want it to look all green, then once you mow it and all the flower heads are gone, then it's just a blanket of green, just like, if you kind of like that look of like what a lawn normally looks like. Or if you let it go a little bit longer and you want to have like powder puffs everywhere, then you can have that as well. So it's a very cool little ground cover.
Absolutely. I agree.
Oh, it's also a host plant for the little silver butterfly. So yeah.
I didn't know that until I did my research, actually, for the presentation.
Really?
So, yeah.
Buffalo bees love it too.
Yes, bees love it. Yeah. So from what I learned like years ago is that it seems like butterflies don't really use it much, but bees, like honeybees, love it, and other kinds of little bees love it also. But it's really good for that if you like attracting pollinators to your yard too, or for anybody who raises honeybees also.
Next one is blue-eyed grass.
Yeah. So blue-eyed grass, that's another one that actually grows naturally in my area also. It does like a little bit more of kind of like a moist, average to moist soil. It'll do fine in. It doesn't, this particular species doesn't really want to dry out too much. There is there's a couple different kinds of blue-eyed grass. There's a scrub blue-eyed grass. So
yeah, that's what I was wondering. I have that growing by me. So I didn't know there were different ones.
Yes. So if you like the look of blue-eyed grass, I mean, you can maybe figure out, what if you need to know what kind of soil you have in your yard, or what kind of moisture and what kind of light before you pick things. But for something like this, if you can find the scrub blue-eyed grass, that would be awesome if you're in a dry spot. This one is going to be more. This is the common name is I think it's narrow-leaf blue-eyed grass, is what it is.
Yes.
But this is the one, it likes more moist conditions. And it is a perennial. It's in the iris family. The way it grows, it kind of has like its grass kind of grows a fan, kind of like how like irises commonly do. Its seed pods look a lot like other irises, so it's really kind of neat. It's a very small flower, and even when it's not blooming, it looks nice in the landscape because it kind of forms these grassy little moons, kind of. So it is nice to have around, even without the flowers.
I love it. It's beautiful. And if you're ever going 80 miles an hour on the highway and you see these, small little patches of blue, but they don't look like spiderwort. They're just too low-lying, and you're like, is that phlox? No, it's not phlox. Phlox is not that blue. What you're seeing is a patch of blue.
Yeah.
It's very striking. It's got that beautiful low-lying blue. It's beautiful.
Yes, absolutely.
So here it is.
Yeah. So the picture on the left isn't really the best. Not really the best picture. I think the sun was too bright and my camera caught it weird. But that was actually growing in a ditch in my front yard, and it was a massive mound of blue-eyed grass. It was a ton of it, and that's where I kind of took some from that to start, to propagate that. But you can just divide. It grows in big clumps, and it keeps on just forming more and more and more in that clump, and then you can divide it and take a clump out, put it in a pot, and it'll start growing some more. It just doesn't stop. So that one's really cool. So if you have one of those, if you want more amounts of property, you'll have them if you want to keep separating them. And the picture on the right just was kind of to show the grassy look of the leaves, what it looks like without flowers. So if you're putting it in your landscape, and it could be like a substitute for what are some of those grasses you find, like what, liriope or like mondo grass, stuff like that.
Yes.
Grasses. This could be kind of like a native substitute for something like that if you have the right kind of soil and light conditions.
Awesome suggestion. Yeah, absolutely. Your next one is blue porterweed.
So this is our, and this is referring to our native porterweed, which is different than what you'll probably find in like most nurseries that you go to. Native nurseries very commonly sell this one, but this one it still attracts, butterflies and all sorts of pollinators and hummingbirds even. It does well in kind of a variety of soils. Probably average to dry. I wouldn't say that like super moist. Although I do have it in some parts of my yard that's pretty moist and it's thriving. I've heard of it also being growing well like on sand dunes, like by the beach. Like I've heard of it growing well there in super sandy,
Wow.
dry soil. In my yard, it's growing in a moist area and shade, and it's blooming wonderful. So this one's a little odd. So whenever you research it online, you'll find that different sites will say different things about it. But, I say if you want to try it out, just do it and see what happens because it seems to thrive in a lot of different locations and soil types.
Yep.
Yeah. And another thing that I didn't realize was this was a host plant for the tropical buckeye. That was something that I didn't know about.
Oh, I didn't know that either. Huh,
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Interesting. Buckeye.
Those are pretty.
Yeah. Oh, my text showed up for you there. That's weird.
Yeah, it's all right.
Save or something. I had text there, but it's all right. So this picture just wanted to show you what it kind of looks like and how it's kind of different from, the one that you might find at your normal nursery or traditional big box nursery. Those tend to get very tall and bushy. These Florida native porterweed stay low to the ground. They might get, gosh, I don't know, like 10 inches high or maybe up to 12 or maybe something to that effect.
Yeah.
But they won't get, a couple feet like the other ones. And these kind of sprawl out a little bit more.
They do.
So it works a little bit more like a ground cover type of thing.
Or the edge of the flower bed. I like that look.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I just have it in a mound. I just kind of formed a small island and I planted porterweed in there. I almost treat it like beach dune sunflower because they are mounting plants as well. So I just left it alone and I like the look of it. And you would be surprised how many butterflies visit this plant.
Yeah.
Bees and leafcutter bees and bumblebees. For a small plant and a small flower, it has a great return value.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely. And this is another one that's easy to propagate more from. It starts from cuttings, super easy. And it's also a pretty prolific reseeder. So you'll find seedlings popping up around it, or you could just start new ones from cuttings, and it works very easily.
Cool. The next one is Bahama Cassia.
Who's doing that one?
That was Jennifer.
Oh, okay. I'm doing that one. Okay, so this one, it seems like it grows in a variety of conditions, full sun and part sun. I even have one in a shady area. And it's the host plant for the sulfur butterfly. And I personally think the caterpillars are gorgeous. They're bright yellow with stripes, and it's a really useful plant. It's beautiful for its appearance, its leaves and flowers. So definitely a must-have. And there's the caterpillar right there, and they'll be all over the plant. And sometimes they eat it down quite a bit if it's a younger plant, but it's worth it. Then you have a bunch of yellow butterflies flying everywhere, and
Yeah.
that's great too.
And the fun thing about the sulfurs that pupate on this, when they're munching on the leaves, they're green. The caterpillars are green, but once they start munching on the flowers, they turn yellow. So it's really cool to see these caterpillars change color depending on what plant, what part of the plant they're eating.
That's
Really interesting.
awesome.
Yeah, this one actually this one is an endangered species, correct? The Bahama cassia, I think is.
Yes, or threatened. It's only found. It's really only locally vouchered. I'm sorry, naturally vouchered in
South
Monroe
Florida.
County. Yeah, very farther south, but it's extensively used in cultivation. So many of the another poster child for this, which we'll touch on, is uh, sky blue cluster vine. So it's naturally vouchered in South Florida only, but you see that so much in cultivation now at native nurseries, and they're available here in Central Florida as well.
So just to kind of put this out there, there's another one, privet senna, which is found in a little bit more parts. It goes kind of up to Central Florida, and so if you don't want to have to worry about it not being as cold tolerant or something like that, that one is probably, it may be a little bit better for people who are a little bit more north of where the Bahama cassia is rainforest. And they look very similar, but the privet senna has like longer kind of landscape leaves with kind of on the ends. So that's another one, and they look very, very similar to each other. If you like to look at this, if you live more in the Florida area.
Absolutely. And Bahama cassia is only good on calcareous soil or soils with more basic pH. So most of Central Florida, if you're living on sandy soil, chances are your pH is pretty acidic or more on the acidic side. So Bahama cassia actually likes the opposite, where your pH is higher. So in case you don't, if you don't have the right soil conditions to do, chances are this tree won't work for you, or this small or this tall shrub per se. The next one is morning glories. They're everywhere.
Am I talking about all these, or okay?
Yeah.
So okay. I had shared the other ones, but this one's, I see this growing down the road all the time. Ipomoea, is that's the correct pronunciation?
Yes.
Okay. So it's a very drought tolerant one, and also I see bees and butterflies on it. A lot of time, this particular one you have to see in the morning. That's why they call it a morning glory. The flowers close up and then they reopen the next morning. So these are good for thin slimes or on different shrubs or trees. And when they start looking, sometimes they start looking, the leaves go brown and stuff, and you can just cut them down and they reseed. So they come back every year, whether you want to or not. Go to the next one. And my favorite is the Scarlet Morning Glory. I have that all over my yard in different places, and I see hummingbirds every single day on that. And the butterflies love it also. So it's just a really great plant to just allow to grow over different shrubs. And I have it along flower beds where there's a short like picket fence, and when it's done flowering, you can just trim it and throw it down somewhere, and it'll regrow. And
Really?
this other, yeah, it just comes back. It's one of my favorite, just for that. And I like the color variation it offers when you put it with other bushes. And man in the ground, I haven't personally grown it. I would assume it grows similar to Scarlet Morning Glory. I ordered it for the plant sale, and I believe this one is endangered. So I think it'll be a fun one to experiment with, and hopefully it offers the same, versatility as the Scarlet Morning Glory.
Yeah, Yeah, it's surprising to hear that if you trim it, the trimmings under proper conditions will propagate.
Oh, not the
Um,
trimmings, the seeds. Every single flower creates several seeds. So
right.
once it's
Okay.
done flowering, you just throw it on the ground. You don't have to physically plant the seeds. They will find their way to the soil and regrow.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. So frequent cedar. Yeah, I've been
Yeah.
always cautious with this one because it's very dense and it can be aggressive. Um,
Yeah, it can be. You
yeah,
can, but I feel like it easily rips out. I'm always weeding anyways because
cool.
weeds, Florida. So so you just rip it out. It has, its root system isn't very extensive. So to me, it's not that pesty.
Very cool. Good to know. Stacy writes, "What does vouchered mean?" So, Stacy, vouchered in the way we're actually talking conversationally means naturally vouchered. So, if you go to the plant atlas or any herbarium, you'll find a map that shows where the distribution of a particular plant is. And they're not talking about plants that are growing in people's yards or in cultivation on the side of the roads, purposely planted, but these are plants that are naturally thriving and reproducing on their own. They were not, planted there. So that means vouchered. So when you voucher a plant at an herbarium, you're taking a dried or pressed sample, submitting it. They do their own procedures on their end, and then they'll update the map. But this goes for plants that are native as well as non-native. So many of our invasive plants like Kogan grass or Guinea grass or Brazilian pepper, the most notorious of them all, you'll see them vouchered across the state as well. So that means that they were not purposely planted. The parent plant was not intentionally planted there. They just escaped into natural areas. And Ryan, our friend Ryan writes in, a voucher plant is one that has been collected and dried from a county and then stored at the USF Herbarium. Peruse Atlas of Florida Plants for more information, floridaplantatlas.usf.edu. Love that website. Matter of fact, there's a water atlas too out there in case you guys are interested in water conservation efforts. Just Google water atlas. Pretty cool.
I'm gonna have to check that out.
All right. Well, then our next plant here is Simpson Stopper. Love this plant.
Yeah, I hear so many good things about it. I'm really excited. I have at least two, maybe more. So they're establishing, and maybe next year I'll get to see the flowers and the berries. But you can see it's covered with flowers, and then it has multicolored berries, and they're supposed to be edible, but birds like them. And I swear I planted it, and there were birds just checking it out the same day. I think I heard someone else say that happened, and it happened to me too. So I'm getting it ready for them. It'll be ready.
Yeah, this plant is definitely a twofer. So just from your pictures, you can see how pretty and delicate the flowers look like, and they bloom in unison. And then your fruits are just that delicious red color, very inviting and attractive. So it's showy in flower and fruit. Love it.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So yeah, here's your close-ups of Simpson Stopper. And then the next one is wild coffee.
So wild coffee is a shade plant. A lot of people have shade, and they really want to make that area interesting, and this will make it look beautiful and benefit pollinators and birds. So everybody who has this loves this plant. So it's not something that you'll regret. The leaves looks, they're shiny and have texture to them. And I just recently planted in my yard, and it's doing really well without having to load it with water. So yay.
I love this plant, and it's definitely a plant that likes like well balanced moisture in the soil. So that's what mesic means. Mesic is well-balanced moisture throughout the year. Not too wet, not too dry, kind of the Goldilocks of soils, just right.
Mhm.
And it's shade tolerant, part shade, and then sometimes full sun, but just depending on the amount of moisture there is in the soil. Can be very attractive once it starts fruiting. Those gorgeous, gorgeous fruit.
Yeah.
It's so inviting to birds.
Yep. So you put it under an oak tree, and they can have their nest in the oak tree and fly down and eat some berries. And they've got everything they need right there.
That's right. It's like
Nice.
um, um,
Oh,
And rouge plant, that's another one that you can grow right near the coffee plants, and
mhm.
it serves similar purposes, but it's a brighter red. And I know when I look at the flowers, I think there's like a pink tinge to them, and they seem to reseed kind of prolifically, but they're not hard to pull up if you don't want too many.
Mhm. Yeah.
So
Yeah, and Molly Gibson writes about the wild coffee. She says, I have several wild coffee in my yard. They are in sun for about 6 hours a day here.
great. So they don't have to be in the shade.
Yeah, we get a lot of questions from people that directly message us through social media about their wild coffee not being cited correctly. But once you find that happy medium for your wild coffee, it's a plant and forget approach. It'll take care of itself. So, Molly, it seems like you found what
The
the exact
perfect.
type your wild coffee loves. So good for you. But yeah, I love Rouge Plant, Jennifer.
Hmm.
It's very weedy though, so we have to keep that in mind. It's once
Yeah.
it's happy, it's really happy. It won't stop. I mean, your entire neighborhood
Yeah.
is a Rouge Plant.
Uh-oh. It's a good point to make. I
Yeah,
have a space in the shade where I really want to fill it in, and so I was looking for stuff like that
yeah.
just
It
under
fills
the
it.
oaks.
It's very attractive to birds and wildlife. Um, but yeah, once it's happy, it's super happy. Prolific seeder. So there it is again. And
Yeah.
yeah, I love that you said as you get to know your plants, you will associate their flowers and fruits or lack thereof with the seasons of Florida. That's a real powerful statement there. Real powerful.
Yeah. Yep.
Native mints. So we have Cat
Yeah.
and Conradina.
So these, I recently got some from either Twin Flower or one of the Florida Native Plant Society sales, and I stuck them in the ground in a dry area, and
Crap.
uh-oh. And the dry area, they're really just doing great. And a horse ran over one, and I was able to take the cuttings and root them and put them back in the ground, and they're really doing good. And I haven't seen the flowers yet, but they look really beautiful. I'm excited for when that happens.
There's a
And
huge diversity of them.
I
So
believe there's a variety of calamint that supports and a bee that they thought was extinct. It's not local to here, but
yeah, the
it's
lake
important
whales,
to,
blue bee.
yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, Lake Wales Ridge for our viewers, if you do not know this, it's like an island of extremely endemic species. So way back when, in geologic time, when parts of Florida, large, vast tracts of Florida were underwater, the Lake Wales Ridge was basically an island. So it created the island effect with many of our plant species. They speciated apart from mainland North America, and they formed their own unique ecosystems. It's a real special place, and that's why we are so avidly promoting native plants all the time. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
we're
yeah,
losing a lot of we're losing a lot of habitat, and I think
Mhm.
people don't realize that these types of plants are just disappearing, right? Without
Mhm.
anybody even knowing they exist.
Right.
They'll grow underneath of some palmetto, and people will just walk right by and not even know they're there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a shame, and hopefully our outreach and chats like this really help educate people that there's so much variety when it comes to native plants, and we really should embrace native plant gardening because it works with our native soils, it works with our native ecosystems. It's just a win-win. And if
Yeah,
you are a gardener that's pressed for time, these plants really, when you plant them right plant right place,
yeah,
just take care of themselves.
yeah. And the foliage on this is so interesting.
Yeah,
It's beautiful little
yeah,
green leaves coming out of it and
and
different
very
colors.
fragrant, very
Yes,
fragrant,
I love the smell. The smell is great. Just,
very
you
fragrant.
know, stop and smell the calamint instead of roses.
Yeah. So yeah, but yeah, just when you said like the Lake Wales Ridge, there was a statement here, like many other plants in these types of soils. The Lake Wales Ridge and our surrounding sandy areas are highly desirable because they're elevated. So when you
Yeah,
develop on those areas, when it rains, like we've had our rain patterns this summer, the water washes away. It washes away from your developments. That's very desirable for
yeah,
urban settings. So there's a huge competition when it comes to uh, areas that are high and dry, especially here in Florida. So fortunately, plants that have specialized for high and dry areas are now under intense pressure, and unfortunately, they're losing the battle on that. So the next one we have is native chaff heads.
yeah. I've been working on collecting these from different native nurseries. um, so um, the basil leaves look comparable to the Stokes aster, and the flower heads shoot up a flower stalk, and they can grow in groups and look really good in a mixed flower bed with some
Mhm.
native grasses. And
Yeah, beautiful.
so their bloom season's coming up, and so like we
Yeah,
said before, it's the second spring, and
that's right.
so when you have this and the solidago, the goldenrod,
Hmm.
growing together with the grasses, it's an amazing view to me. And I've seen stuff like that in the wild before, and I really want to imitate that look, that wild look in the
Yeah,
field.
it's beautiful. And your next pictures here show when they're in bloom and right after they're done blooming and they've set
Yeah,
seed.
yeah. So it changes the look of the yard completely.
Absolutely,
Um, and I've
absolutely.
heard that if you can find like a patch of vanilla leaf in the wild, you can smell the vanilla, and
Yeah,
so that would be great to have. Like, why wouldn't you want something like that in your yard?
correct, correct. The seeds provide great food sources for small mammals and
Oh,
birds
great. Yeah.
during the winter time. So yeah, they're a great plant to have and very easy to manage, and don't have to really go over there with your loppers or pruning shears. They just kind of die back down and they
Yeah.
start growth pattern again for the following year. So it's nice.
Yeah.
Your next one is blue salvia, and folks, we're coming to the very end, so just hang on tight. We just got a few more slides to go, but once we start talking about plants, we get very passionate.
Yeah, you can't have just two. You can have like 20. So salvia, salvias are, I feel like they're just the best plants for the yard. They just, so many different pollinators love them, and they bloom at different times of the year.
Hmm.
And this one here gets kind of tall, and so it's one of those that you're going to want to mix in with things that can support it,
Hmm.
so that it it doesn't fall over, but there's probably ways to make it look interesting that way. So this is a late summer and fall bloomer, and just like most salvia, it can self-seed.
Hey, here you
But
have a whole row of salvia. I love this picture.
yeah,
Is
it's
that
great.
where did you see that one? Was this on Instagram or?
Yeah, that was on Instagram.
That's great.
Yeah.
And this is a fall bloomer. I don't have Salvia azurea, so I'm just curious. So this is just strictly in fall, or does it bloom year round like our red salvia does?
It's just the autumn bloomer. It's not one that will bloom year round. No, like then the lyre leaf sage, that's like an early spring bloomer, but it kind of staggers throughout spring. So there's ways to get all these salvias, and you always have something from the salvia blooming.
Awesome. And turkey oak. So we have a tree here.
Yes, turkey oak. I love turkey oak. The springtime, it has this bright green leaves, and it matures throughout the year. And summertime, the mature trees, they turn like a red, orange color, and it just deepens until it falls away. So people say Florida doesn't have change in leaves, but I know there's many native trees that have different colors throughout the year, just like up north.
Absolutely.
Just people chop them all down. So this one thrives in really dry soil. I have upland soil where I live, and these grow native near my house all over the place.
Agreed. And here's a caveat for you guys. So if you're a native plant gardener, definitely plant turkey oak as a specimen tree or a shorter tree. It only grows to be about 30 feet high. So it's not super tall. Like it doesn't attain.
Yeah, it doesn't have a big
canopy or width. But in natural environments and in restoration projects, definitely defer to an ecologist, because in fire suppressed areas, turkey oak can take over. So it can displace native plant communities because of its leaves. They don't degrade over time. They tend to shade out or smother out small saplings. And it takes advantage of the imbalance in our fire regimen. So if a property is properly managed with fire regimens, then the turkey oak is placed in check. If there is a lapse for any reason, then the turkey oak tends to push out other important trees, particularly longleaf pine. So it's important to
I've noticed
that.
the pines seem to do the same. They really take over a lot too, between turkey oak and pine. And then any of the oaks, really.
Yep. So the very right of the Polyphemus moth. So
yeah.
Gorgeous plant. Love the middle picture too. It shows a fall in Florida with its orange emblazoned foliage.
Yeah, I love it. And, all of the oaks are really important to invertebrates and birds, mammals.
Yes, they are the predominant tree species in North America. Absolutely. And sky blue cluster vine. So very popular plant for all the obvious reasons.
I have this one growing in my backyard. It's growing up this patch of clumping bamboo, and you can take cuttings from it and grow it in different areas. It's not overly aggressive so far, at least. But it seems like it serves comparable purposes that morning glories would. Hummingbirds and butterflies and bees, they all like them. But it's a really beautiful color.
Yeah, super popular. Go ahead.
It blooms autumn to winter. Mine hasn't bloomed yet, so it's a pretty late bloomer. So it offers you color during winter time.
Good to know. Good to know. Yeah, it's super popular in native nurseries. So its native range is in South Florida, but where it is endangered, I believe. However, this is a good success story where we've taken an endangered plant, and because it's pretty and manageable, well, manageable in gardening sense, we have really replicated it and amplified or scaled it into the nursery industry. But it's a very pretty plant, very pretty plant. And here it is again. So nice potted aspect.
Mhm.
See a little honeybee visiting it. Sprawling vine. Yeah, definitely. So yeah, want some winter color? This is your vine. The pollinators will thank you.
Yeah.
And then firebush.
Yeah.
Everybody knows about firebush.
Yeah. It's one of those plants that I think everybody should have one, at least one.
Absolutely.
Um, it grows in full sun and in shade. It looks great with, reds and purples and yellows. So it really
Hmm.
pairs well. I have mine next to a beautyberry, and
Hmm.
I love the berries next to it. Um,
Yeah.
and hummingbirds, they love it. Butterflies are all over it.
Hmm. Hmm.
And yeah, so that's pretty much it.
Hybrid varieties don't really aid in pollination um, because the flower tube is so constricted that the bees don't actually get into the flower. But the bees are resourceful and they'll kind of bite on the side of the flower and
Oh,
still
wow.
extract the nectar, but it's not the ideal or the best way that a plant actually initially purposed its flowers for. So hybrid varieties are things that we don't really care for. You can read all about it in Roger Hammer's op-ed called "The Hamelia Mess," where our native firebush has been interbred with other similar species to create these hybrids, which unfortunately, have been at a detriment to the flower itself, the plant. So, yeah, when you choose firebush, definitely make sure you have the native kind. And there it is again, beautiful pictures. Look at that orange bar sulfur on it, nectar,
Yeah.
gorgeous. And I didn't know it was a larval host for the Pluto sphinx moth.
Yeah. Everybody forgets about the moths. But moths are beautiful too and really useful for, birds.
That's
Birds gotta eat.
very cool. Yeah, and the berries are great. The fruit, I'm sorry, is great
Berries.
for birds.
Hmm.
Great for birds. Very attractive plant. Cherokee bean.
Yeah, I grew some from seed this year, so I have a few in my yard, and um, I have some that are in full sun and some that are in shade, and they're both doing good.
Yeah,
So
I love
there's
it.
this one person in Lake Helen that has it in their front yard. I don't know, um, but it's giant and it looks gorgeous when it's in flower. It's just exploding with color, and it's so
I love
beautiful.
I love it. And I've noted right here that it is drought resistant, not
Hmm.
tolerant, resistant. This plant is definitely a testament to Florida's adapted to Florida. When we had a drought a few years back, maybe 5 years at this point, and it was a consecutive year drought, this plant bloomed faithfully and consistently. So every time there is it's summer, early summer, it started putting out all its flowers. Didn't feel the need to put out any leaves. They said it's hotter than heck. I don't need to put out any leaves, but it'll bloom religiously, and that's the testament to its endurance as a native plant. It's a fabulous plant. One of my
Yeah, and the
favorites.
leaves. I like the way the leaves look too. They're the
Mhm.
shape is really unique.
The beans are poisonous to humans, so they're good for wildlife. And as you stated, it's great to serve as a refuge for small birds and animals because they do have those thorns on them.
Mm.
But other than that, fabulous plant. Very drought-resistant plant. It's excellent. And that's the end. So we made it through after an hour and a half. So it was a great garden chat. So refer a friend to Cuplet Fern today. Go to fnps.org. If you can, please donate to us. Our Venmo, PayPal, Cash App information is right there. Let's take a few more closing questions at this time. And I see Kaylee. Hi, Kaylee. Welcome back.
Hi. Sorry, my
And
phone died. I had to do a charger.
Uh-oh.
well, I'm sure. Time flies when we talk about plants. Sorry about that. Leah writes, what are the plants at the plant sale and how do we order? So pre-ordering for a couple of our members is already closed. People have asked us about the plant sale, but I don't want to actually tell you the plants because depending on the time of the day that you arrive, the plants that I discussed may have been gone already or sold. So just come and check out our booth, come talk to us. Please make sure that you wear a mask. This is a no mask, no service event during COVID-19. If you have issues with wearing a mask, please visit us at another time. We'll have plenty of different plant sales in the future. Our friend Ryan writes, if you're looking for Calamintha that's adaptable to use Calamintha georgiana, native only to a few counties in North Florida. Adapts well to South and Central Florida. He's used it successfully. Very low shrub here in Sarasota. Whack it all the way back in the fall for folks that like it tidy. Yeah, excellent suggestion. I fully agree with that. And Mary writes, thank you. Hey, Mary. Mary is like one of my mentors. Love her. Thanks, Mary. Thanks for your support. It's such a pleasure. Makes me break out into a smile when you comment. Thanks, Mary. Holly writes, thank you all very much. I learned a lot.
Yeah.
And Ryan writes, thanks, Gia, Jennifer, Kelly, Mark. Thank you for putting this together. Serenoa chapter. Hey, family. Love that. So, guys, yeah, please, if you are in our area, go to fnps.org and become a Cuplet Fern member today. We are celebrating our 10-year anniversary. So, we're doing this as part of our just a way of saying thank you to all our members. So thanks for joining us today.
All right. Bye.
Bye, everyone.